Oh yeah, sexy biscuits. Nice.
London Post 1975. A YouTuber's on the rise. Reviewing games late at night and sometimes friends. But London Post 1975.
1975, and welcome to the Vlandum. Welcome to the Vlandum ROG. Welcome to the ticking clock room. But as always, you know my thoughts on ticking clocks. If you don't like the sound of ticking clocks, I couldn't give a shit. What would I like to talk about this week? I want to talk about computer game magazines, and specifically competitions in computer game magazines. Did you ever enter one? Did you ever win one? I won two. In the same magazine, not sure why I did it like that. In the same magazine, I won two. In the same magazine, in the same year. I guess they didn't work out who I was, or could they disqualify you? Are you allowed to win another competition? I don't know. It was the very, very late 80s. I was picking up a copy of Retro Gamer the other day at work, and one of my mates who was considerably younger than me said, "Who buys magazines anymore?" To which I said, well, obviously I do, and if you look very closely at the cover, the kind of giveaway as to why I'm buying it is on the cover. But I did concede that all modern magazines are now shite. Magazines have not been good since the tail end of the 90s. Specifically, magazines have not been up to the dizzying heights where they were absolutely amazing, fantastic, in the late 80s and early 90s. Hell, they were great all the way through the 80s. The internet essentially killed magazines, which you would expect to be fair, but obviously my first introduction to magazines, I'm just going to give you a little bit of recap. I have talked about magazines before in a response to Novabud, but this video is about a specific magazine, the official UK SEGA Mastersystem Magazine, or S is what I believe it was known as, or what it was based on its cover, because it was a little bit of an odd magazine, and trying to find some information on it these days, it's not as straightforward as I thought it would be, but I'm jumping ahead of myself. So, having the ZX Spectrum in 1982, the first magazine that my mum ordered for us from the newsagent, from Felton newsagent, that one I talk about in that video when I got my bike and rode there to pick up, was Sinclair User, and that was a good entry magazine for the ZX Spectrum. It didn't have the sort of art, production and style of Crash magazine, nor did it have the sense of humour of Your Sinclair, but it was a good solid Spectrum magazine. And then we added to that, funnily enough, Your Sinclair and Crash magazine. Crash magazine was the tits. Like, the artist in it was absolutely fantastic, and the comic strip in the early days, Terminal Man, which I've since bought the graphic novel of, was superb, and it was a great magazine for interaction. If you had a high score for their double page high score page, that was awkward, it got away from me, you would send in your score or a screenshot of your ZX Spectrum to prove that you didn't just make it up, to be fair, and a picture of you, and then they would do this double spread, and there'd be like trees and a graveyard and people with axes and shit, like executioners, and they stick the head next to the score, like with a stump of hanging out his neck and shit like that, and blood. Really, really, really cool. But they were all shared magazines because the ZX Spectrum was a shared system. And then obviously I got my Sega Master System in, I want to say 1987, maybe early 88. And obviously I got it for Christmas. I saved up half of it, my parents paid the other half. It was second hand because I wasn't a spoiled twat. And I'm very glad my parents, raised me that way, because I grew up understanding the value of money and had a work ethic. Just thought I'd put that in there. And so, because I had my own system that I did let my mates play it, my brothers play it, I should say, but I didn't have to share it, or we didn't have to ration time on it, because it was mine. I wanted my own magazine for it. I mean, obviously there was Mean Machines, the couple of pages in CVG and CVG, which was one I bought myself, but that was a multi-format magazine. Only a little bit of it was dedicated to the Sega Master System, although that little bit that was dedicated to the Sega Master System had a massive hand in me buying said system. So one day we were at Nelsey on a Saturday afternoon, and I came across this magazine, and its big S in the top left-hand corner, and like a grid, like a square behind it with the grid from the cover, box cover of Sega Master System game, black on white and stuff like that. I'm pretty sure this was the magazine, and I didn't end up getting it because I didn't get a Master System on launch. It'd been out for a while when I got it, so I didn't end up, buying it till round about maybe issue 5, 6, or 7. Again, I might be confusing it with another magazine, but the point of this video is still the same. And if it is that magazine, the first few issues of the magazine were mail order. Like you got a coupon or something when you bought your Master System, but then it eventually came to the newsagents, and I was just so hyped that there was a whole magazine dedicated to the Mega Drive. Wasn't out at this point, so a whole magazine dedicated to the Sega Master System, which was my system, so I had my magazine. And I really, really liked it. Loved this magazine, in fact. Was it as witty and it's well, produced or executed as CVG? Certainly not. Wasn't, like it's glossy looking and, amazing artwork as Crash. But it was a magazine for my first own, completely myself, console. And yeah, so I liked it, and it had a little bit of an influence in me picking games and stuff like that, but it was mainly just so I had time to read once a month for my system. And I think their mascot was a snake, because we'll get to it, one of the competitions I won in this magazine. But also, it was like, they had really, really good screenshots. Anyone else remember this? And then their screenshots became really shit. The colours were really off and stuff like that, and they looked pixelated and stuff like that. And this is in the late 80s, mind. So people complained and they said, yeah, that's because we're using a new system to capture the images when we feed it into a computer or a Mac or something like that. I don't know, because when did Macs kick in? Like, from desktop design and shit like that. So obviously it means the images aren't quite as good, but it means we can do lots more reviews quicker and better and stuff like that. And even as a kid I thought, like, yeah, but I buy this magazine for you to give me a proper indication of what the game is like, and not just when you give me your opinions on it, but I want screenshots that match it. So I think that's why eventually I stopped reading it. I mean, the final nail in the coffin was I got my Mega Drive, and then I was living in Mean Machines Town, because when it was a full magazine, because that was the pinnacle of console magazines. I never liked it when it split up into Mean Machines, Sega, and then whatever the fucking Super Nintendo was. Should have kept it as a console magazine. I know you could say, well, yeah, but like, that's what CVG did. No, CVG was a multi-format magazine. Mean Machines was a multi-console magazine, and almost everyone I know thought it lost something when it stopped being that and split into Sega. I know it's still kind of multi, but split into Sega and Nintendo, but that's just me. Anyway, so the great thing about this magazine was, because I felt like it was my magazine for my system, I felt a little bit more involved with it, than I did with your Sinclair and stuff like that. And also, the other thing I was trying to explain to this guy at work, which is, back in the day, magazines had competitions, and competitions were won by skill, because in the 80s we weren't all pussies and the liberals hadn't taken over, where you can't have someone being better than someone else simply by skill, or because they are better than them, because that will offend that other individual, and we can't have that. So everyone gets a participation award. So that's why you never see skill-based competitions anymore. It's all fucking text this number, we deduct £2 from you, you go into my fucking hat. But in these magazines you would have competitions, like the 8-bit Spectrum magazines, and 8-bit Micros did it, didn't they, where you could design games, like, was it Mad Cats or something, or Cats? And then wasn't that game that was like Supermarket Sweep with Jimmy Savile on the cover, was a competition, design a game for in a competition. But the point was, whoever had the best idea, or in this case skill-based, drew the best thing, it won. It wasn't literally just draw it out of a hat because someone's going to start fucking crying at the back and I can't be dealing with that shit. Yeah, and that to me was brilliant. That you felt like you had a genuine chance. If you were, and I was alright at drawing as a kid. I'm 11 at this point, right? I was alright. So you felt like you had a chance. And so their first competition was, they were giving away like a bunch of light phasers. And I didn't have a light phaser, and I wanted a light phaser. And yeah, it was design your ultimate light gun. And I was massively into 2000 AD at this point, massively. And I loved the gun designs from Strontium Dog and Bad Company. So I took this big fuck off piece of A3 paper and just drew this insane thing that it would never make for a light gun. It was like a core unit of essentially a pistol, and you could actually slap in a magazine, which for some reason I thought was smart, because because I drew the wire from the magazine that you would plug into the front of your console. So it was like, now it's powered on, and you could cock it. It had a stock, it had a sight. You could attach an extra long rifle like that, had all these buttons for auto fire, single shot, semi and shit like that. And I just drew it in the style, like all these modular units clipped together with little lines coming off saying, this is the stock, this is where your power unit goes, which is also your magazine. So it feels like you're actually banging in, you know, a magazine and stuff. Extendable stock, you've got a target so you can look at the screen, and it's got a little screen in it, as if this would ever be fucking made. I was just drawing it because ultimately I like drawing. You know what? And I thought, I got to just go mental with it. Got to, like, literally wipe the floor. I don't think they're looking for who can design an accurate, to-be marketed light phaser, knowing that their core audience was probably like 11 to 15-year-olds. They just wanted to see someone go nuts. And that's what I did. And it was all done with rulers and shit like that. So it was all, I wouldn't go as far as say technical drawing or CDT and shit like that. But it was done like really clean is what I'm trying to say, and I coloured it in, but only with black and blue, pens, like fine tips and stuff like that. So it had like this metallic sheen and look to it. Yeah, labelled everything, and yeah, and then you sat and you waited. And to be fair, I never thought I'd win or anything like that. I actually, the main thing about it was I genuinely enjoyed the act or activity of drawing this, you know, draw a light gun. What would you, and it was also kind of what you would like to see, knowing that it would never get made, but what would be your fucking wet dream of a light gun for the Sega Master System? You could also argue that's what my next competition entry was, like the ultimate thing of what you would want. And so that's what it was. And then couple of months later, I think it was literally 2 months, imagine my surprise when I'm thumbing through this magazine in the newsagent, and they had a double spread, and mine was right at the top like this, and it was all big and shit like that. And I wasn't the only person, but I won a light phaser, and I won Safari Hunt, and what was the other game I won? Was it Rescue, or was that a game I borrowed off someone at school? I can't remember, but yeah, won a light phaser, which was a big deal when you were 11, and a big deal in 1988, because how much did a light phaser cost? It probably was, you know, getting up for like 50 quid. Wasn't it? And it was free. It was a free toy. But more so, flipping through that magazine, being in that newsagent, and like your adrenaline goes and your heart starts beating and shit like that, and you're like, holy crap! I remember showing it to my mum and my brothers. I'm in the fucking magazine. I won. Don't know if I took it to school. I don't know why I never kept this. Why did I never cut these out? I do have a picture of the other one, but it's miles and miles and miles and miles back in Facebook, and I simply could not be asked to sit there and trawl through to try and find it, because when I talked about this years ago as a flippant off, you know, topic comment that I won these competitions, Guru Larry said that he had the magazines and he went through it and he found what I drew for the second prize, so for the second competition I won, scanned it and sent it to me. And I got stipped on that competition, absolutely stipped, but we'll get to that. So anyway, yeah, big deal, a little bit of excitement, a lot of adrenaline. I was in a magazine, and also this is why I think the mascot was a snake, because they said, nice lines, nicely drawn, lots of attachments, and then trying to be funny, and then a little snake, it goes, and not a snake zapper in sight. See what you did there, magazine? Mascot, funny. So yeah, that was a real big deal. And then ultimately I sold my light gun after a month, because there weren't actually that many good light gun games, were there? Rescue was utterly fantastic. You know, the little guy going along on the railroad track and stuff like that? That was brilliant. Rambo was crap. Operation Wolf was seizure inducing. Can't really remember anything else. They were a gimmick even back then, even on, like, you know, the 8-bit consoles, which were considerably more powerful than the 8-bit systems, or micros, where they released them to copy or emulate the 8-bit consoles, but they simply did not have enough grunt or tech to do it. So, won a Master System, big deal, saw my name in lights in a magazine. Always thought it was funny though, that it was black and white, because mine was essentially black and white with a bit of blue, but you could see from the other people who won, and we all won joined, by the way, so I guess you could say those of us who won because we drew pictures or essentially got a participation medal, because we all won exactly the same thing. No one edged it out and shit like that. And then the next competition, which was the same year, it was Design Your Ultimate Peripheral, and this is what Guru Larry found, scanned and sent to me. Ultimate Peripheral for your Sega Master System. And even as a kid, right, and so 1987, 88. When did the virtual reality machines come out? Obviously, they'd probably been knocking around behind closed doors. It's for years longer than that, virtual reality. But I didn't know that. I was a kid. It was never on Tomorrow's World and shit like that. But I was obsessed with stuff like that. Absolutely obsessed. So, design your ultimate peripheral for the Sega Master System. Obviously, even as an 11, 12-year-old kid, I knew that you couldn't do it on a Sega Master System. But again, it was like, I want to draw something. I like drawing. Competition might win, might not. It's a process that was just fun. I don't think people even do this shit anymore, which is just enter something because you have fun doing it. If you win, kudos to you. If you don't, it was still shits and giggles, being part of it. And so yeah, I drew a helmet that you would stick on your head, and the Master System was displayed in here, and I gave it a speaker and shit like this, and all these special features, and said, basically it's a virtual reality helmet. You could play games with your Master System, But the point is, when I explained it, because it had sound effects and stuff like that, because everyone's going to say, you got the 3D glasses. No, it wasn't the 3D glasses. It was literally, I designed it as you move as much as you can when you're 12, scribbling on a piece of paper. Move your head around, and virtual reality. It wasn't just the 3D glasses, and they obviously understood that, because I won. I only came third place, I think. I got edged out by, but we'll get to that. I'll finish what my thing was. Yeah, so I had a microphone and shit like that, had speakers and stuff like that, long cable plugged in the front. Ultimately, you still have to look at the screen with your 3D glasses. This was pumping everything into your head. And I coloured it in and everything. And the bastards put it on a black and white page. So, because colour, if you're putting on a black and white page, doesn't get, I can't think of the word, represented properly, because I did it with felt tips and shit like that, it looked ass. It looked absolutely terrible. Whereas if they just fucking took a picture of it, a colour picture, it probably would have got a lot better. Probably wouldn't be a million kids reading that magazine just going, look at this spacker Dave Wade. That's fucking awful. No wonder he got edged out by a coffee machine. Because that's what I got edged out by. They gave a prize to someone who designed his ultimate peripheral was a coffee machine that when you beat a game, I know I made a virtual reality headset, so I can't fucking say anything, but how does the coffee machine know you beat the game? It would brew you a cup of coffee and dispense a biscuit. I shit you not. They even then said that the drawing was shit. I'm not making this up, so maybe they were trolling us all. The drawing was shit, but they liked the idea so much that they redrew it themselves. And that's what they showed on this page, featuring me, this guy, and one other guy. So even as a kid, I'm like, that's a fucking jip. I mean, did he design it or not? Or did you just decide that we've all been relegated? Because I can't remember what the main prize was, but it probably might have even been like the big top Master System one, glasses, gun, console. I don't know, which is a kind of weird prize, because obviously we already got a Master System at that point. But there was a big prize in the end, so this edged us out. And yeah, so I got third prize, which was actually, to be fair, way cooler than the light phaser. And I've looked everywhere for this because I still own it, and it wouldn't fit, and I can't find it. But I have, who remembers the early 80s adverts? Do me a favour, plug me into a Sega, because the UK SEGA Mastersystem adverts were amazing. And it was a white sweatshirt that had Sega there in blue. Then on back, it had the TV screen with the face, with the multicolours, and it said, do me a favour, plug me into a Sega. Where is it? I found it a few years ago, and like a plum, I didn't put it somewhere safe. Because honestly, fucking banging. Those adverts were brilliant. Who remembers those? They were so much better. Well, to be fair, it tanked in North America, so were they going to spend any money on the adverts? Yeah, those adverts were amazing. All the Sega UK adverts were amazing, especially the ones in Viz. Who remembers those? But yeah, so I won that, which I was completely fine with. I wore that to school, and everyone was like, like, it fucking blew people away. I enjoyed that a lot more than Light Gun, because obviously I sold that after a month. But yeah, jibbed out by a kiddie who drew a coffee machine. It was so fucking shit. The magazine people drew it again and then gave the prize to him. Wait, I call bullshit on that. Did that kiddie even actually exist? Can't remember what the other one was, because I only remember that mine and this coffee machine maker thingy, because what a fucking stupid thing. And the fact that they openly admit that it was shit. So look. Participation award. It was so shit they had to draw it again. So what I said about skill-based competition. No, I got edged out by someone who couldn't even fucking draw. But the point is, again, opening my magazine and seeing me in there and knowing that I won a prize, and that I don't even know, because I don't think this lasted longer than 2 years, this magazine, to be fair. So how many people, you know, what user base this magazine had, I honestly don't know, but it was a big deal. It was a big deal, and winning it in the same magazine twice in the same year was like, yeah, you felt special. You felt like, I got some talent, have I? Obviously I didn't, because I got beaten by a fucking coffee machine someone else drew. But yeah, so it was, I mean, magazines don't do this now. Does the Beano do this? I mean, I only buy the Christmas Beano now. I can't recall. I think there's word searches, but there certainly isn't a competition in there. But yeah, there were any magazines, and obviously they probably be younger people, kids. Now, do they even have skill-based competitions? Design something, draw something, send it in, not just, you know, name and address on the back of a postcard, you know, like Blue Peter used to do. Because it was a big part of my childhood, and there were these competitions in, you know, Sinclair User, Crash Magazine, and your Sinclair. But I never really took part because it was a shared magazine. It wasn't until I got this Sega magazine that, because it was my magazine for my console, I felt compelled to take part, because I felt part of something, like a little exclusive club, if that makes sense. So yeah, that was the 2 times I won prizes in a Sega magazine for designing and drawing stuff and sending it in. I mean, did anyone else ever do anything like this? And by that, I mean, did you win any competitions? I won a competition in looking. I entered once to win the real Ghostbusters toys, and I didn't. This was just, you know, name and address. And then I won Dare, the board game. Yeah, played it once. Bit shit, really. But did anyone else win anything? And did anyone else win anything when you entered in competitions like this, where you had to draw something, you had to design something, you had to come up with the idea for something, like such as a game? I'd love to know, because I can't be the only one. And as always, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you later.